In 2017, an experienced hiker named Lila ventured into Farrow Ridge, a dense stretch of wilderness in Washington, known for its winding trails and brutal weather. She wasn't careless or inexperienced. She had logged years of solo hikes and knew exactly how quiet a forest could get. But she always said Farrow Ridge felt different. It was too alive, and somehow too empty. At first, her trip was peaceful. Fresh pine scent, crisp air, early morning mist curling between the trees. She'd only planned a short hike, nothing dangerous, just a few hours along the marked trail. But the first sign that something was wrong came about 40 minutes in. She heard it, clear as a bell. A voice. Not a scream, not a shout, just a single drawn-out, "Hey," far away, but unmistakably human. She froze, scanning the tree line. The trail was empty. No hikers, no movement. The forest looked untouched. She called back. A simple, "Hello?" The wind carried her voice, then silence. No reply. She continued. But 10 minutes later, it came again, from a different direction. "Hey." This time lower, more strained, almost forced. As she looked around, she noticed something else. The air had grown unnaturally still. No chirping birds, no rustling branches, not even the soft hum of insects. A forest turning silent is never a good sign. Predators cause that. Danger causes that. And something in those trees was listening to her. Lila reached a narrow bend in the path where fallen branches lay scattered across the ground. But these weren't normal breaks from storms or decay. They looked bent, not snapped, as if something heavy had stepped on them deliberately, but without leaving a clear print. She crouched to examine the ground. The soil looked disturbed, scraped, dragged, then strangely smoothed over. No paw prints, no boot marks, just an unnatural pattern of movement she couldn't identify. She knew animal behavior well. Nothing matched this. As she stood up, she heard another sound. Thump. A deep, hollow impact. Then another. Thump, thump, thump. Rhythmic, measured, growing closer. She stepped backward, heart hammering. The sound stopped instantly. And then from behind her, the whisper came. Lila. Her name. Soft. Too soft. Like breath brushing her ear even though no one was near her. She spun around. The forest was empty. But something shifted. Not visually, auditorily. The silence deepened, like the woods were inhaling. And she realized, whatever was out there, it knew her name. She did the logical thing. She turned back toward the entrance trail. But the forest around her had changed. Branches hung lower. The shadows between the trunks looked thicker, and the path that had been so clear minutes ago now looked subtly altered. Still there, but somehow wrong. Like someone had moved pieces of it while she wasn't looking. As she hurried forward, something moved in her peripheral vision, quick, low, and incredibly smooth. She told herself it was an animal, until something else happened. A tree ahead of her shook, not from wind, not from weight, but like something had grabbed it. The trunk shivered violently for a second, then stopped dead. The forest held its breath. She backed away slowly, eyes fixed on the tree. That's when she saw an object spiral down from above. A small bundle of twigs tied together with dead grass. Someone had placed it there, someone high above the ground. She didn't wait to see if anything else would fall. She started running. Not sprinting, not yet, but fast enough to feel her pulse pounding in her ears. The forest seemed to press in closer with every step. Trees leaned in, the path darkened, and somewhere behind her, thump, thump, thump. Not footsteps. Not exactly. More like something dragging itself forward in 3 slow pushes. She didn't dare look back. Then out of the corner of her eye, to her left, she caught the glimpse of something threading between the trees. Not a person, not an animal, a shape, Tall, thin, moving with unnatural fluidity, gliding instead of stepping. Its arms, if they were arms, hung too long. Its motion didn't match the thumping. And when its head turned, not fully, just slightly, she thought she saw the suggestion of a face. Not human, but not fully alien either. Just wrong. She stumbled backward, nearly falling. The whisper came again. "Stop!" Her blood ran cold. The voice didn't sound external anymore. It vibrated inside her skull. Another whisper followed, overlapping itself. "Don't run. Come back. Leave." She broke into a full sprint. The trail should have been simple, straightforward. She'd walked it dozens of times before. But the forest shifted. Branches blocked her. Bushes that weren't there 2 hours earlier choked the edges of the path. Even the light seemed to dim, making every direction look identical. Her breaths turned shallow, her legs shook. And behind her, the thumping grew faster. Thump, thump, thump. Like something learning how to move. Like something excited. At one point, she heard the whisper again, closer than ever. "Almost." That single word snapped something inside her. She threw herself through a cluster of low branches, ripping her jacket, scraping her arms. She didn't care. Because through the trees, far ahead, she saw something bright. Sunlight. Open space. The trailhead. She ran harder than she had ever run in her life. The thumping changed, now frantic, uneven, almost angry. At one point she heard the whisper again, closer than ever. "Stop! Come back! Lee! Come back! Lee!" She burst through the last line of trees and collapsed onto the gravel entrance. The sounds stopped instantly. No whispers, no thumping. Just ordinary forest noise returning as if someone pressed play on the world again. When she turned back, the woods looked peaceful, almost inviting. But high on one of the trees, maybe 30 feet up, she saw something dangling. That same bundle of twigs, tied with dead grass. Freshly placed, swaying, though there was no wind. Lila never returned to Farrow Ridge. Search teams later investigated the area after her report, though she never told them everything, and found evidence that disturbed even seasoned rangers. Branches bent in the same unnatural way she described. Deep drag marks that suddenly stopped. Silent zones, places where no sound carried at all. A set of impressions in the soil that didn't match any known animal. One ranger simply said, "It felt like the forest was watching us, listening, like it wanted us to keep talking, so it could learn." Lila still dreams about the whispers, especially the one that said her name. But she never, ever wonders what would have happened if she had turned around to look at the thing following her. Because she's certain of one thing. Whatever hunted her in the Whispering Woods, it wanted her too badly to stay unseen forever. In 2019, a 28-year-old snow surveyor named Jonas was conducting a routine data run across the Caskin Glacier, a remote region in Alaska known for brutal storms that appear without warning. He was experienced, equipped, careful, but whiteouts don't care. His last confirmed radio contact was at 3:47 p.m., minutes before the storm swallowed the entire glacier in a wall of white. Rescue teams assumed he'd shelter in place, as protocol required. But Jonas didn't, because he heard something. A voice. Faint, warped by the storm, but unmistakably human. "Jonas! Over here!" A man's voice, one he thought he recognized. A coworker named Ralph, who was stationed miles away at the base camp. At first, Jonas panicked. Why would Ralph be up here alone? Why was he shouting instead of using the radio? The only explanation that made sense at the time was the worst one. Ralph must have gotten lost in the storm. Jonas couldn't ignore that. not when someone's life might depend on him. He made a decision, the most catastrophic of his entire career. He followed the voice, the whiteout, where reality disappears. The blizzard was so dense he couldn't even see the tip of his ski pole. Snow didn't fall, it swirled, thick enough to feel like moving through wet cement. Every sound was muffled, except the one he kept hearing. Jonas, over here. Always ahead. Always just far enough that he had to keep walking. But something bothered him from the very start. The storm was loud, howling loud, yet the voice cut through it. Not naturally, not like someone shouting against the wind, more like the storm parted around it. He tried calling out, "Ralph, I'm coming! Keep shouting!" Silence. For a few seconds. Then, closer. "Jonas, hurry." It wasn't panicked, wasn't freezing, it wasn't even out of breath, just calm. Too calm. And the worst part? Ralph had a deep, gravelly voice. This one sounded off, flattened, strained, like someone trying to imitate him without fully understanding how human speech works. Jonas kept moving anyway, because in a whiteout, doubt feels like death. You cling to anything that sounds like hope. Signs of deception, the first clues. As he trudged deeper into the storm, a few things didn't add up. First, the direction. The voice was leading him away from camp, not toward it. Second, the terrain changed. No longer the smooth, predictable glacier surface. He started seeing dark spots beneath the snow. Crevasses. Deep. Narrow. Bottomless. Caskin Glacier was famous for them. They hid under thin layers of snow, waiting for weight. Jonas. Almost. The voice was closer now. Uncomfortably close. He stopped walking. And that tiny moment of hesitation saved his life. Because right in front of him, invisible until the wind shifted, the snow thinned just enough to reveal a black gap. A massive fissure, wide enough to swallow him whole. If he had taken 2 more steps, he would have vanished. Heart hammering, he backed away and shouted, "Ralph, where are you? Answer me!" The voice replied immediately, from behind him this time. "Here." He spun around. No figure, no light, no shadow, just white. But the voice had changed. No longer calm, no longer human. It stretched unnaturally, rising and falling like something learning the shape of syllables. Hurry. Jonas felt the first real surge of primal fear. That wasn't Ralph. That wasn't anyone. Something in the storm was talking to him, and it wanted him to move. The mimic, a presence without form. He tried his radio again, static. The storm drowned the signal. He tried retracing his steps, impossible. Snow had erased everything behind him in seconds. And then it appeared. Not visually, audibly. Another voice, another imitation, a new one. "Help, please." A woman this time, weak, trembling, too perfect, too deliberate. Jonas's breath hitched. This wasn't random. This thing, whatever it was choosing voices, testing them, adapting. He took a slow step backward, then another. The woman's voice sharpened instantly. "No! Come back!" That was the moment he knew. It could hear him move. Not see, not touch, just hear. And it responded to sound like a predator tracking prey. He snapped off his headlamp, turned sideways to shield his breathing, moved with soft, deliberate steps. The storm swallowed him whole. The close call. The impossible distortion. He walked blindly, praying he wasn't drifting toward another crevice. The wind felt colder at his back, colder than the blizzard itself. Then, The whisper came again. Jonas. 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 Layered. Stacked. As if multiple mouths were trying his name at once. He didn't answer. Didn't look. But the voice didn't need visibility. It knew exactly where he was. The next sound nearly broke him. Footsteps. Not human. Not animal. Crunching snow with careful, deliberate weight, pacing parallel to him, only a few feet away. Then a new voice, clearer than any yet. Stop. He froze. A silhouette flickered in the white, not a shape, not a body, just darker snow shifting in a humanoid outline. The voice spoke again, but this time, it used his own voice. Stop. Perfect imitation. Perfect pitch. And then, as if correcting a mistake, it tried the word again in a warped harmony. Stope. Jonas didn't wait to hear more. He hurled his ice axe as far as he could in the opposite direction. When it hit the ground with a distant clang, the silhouette instantly snapped toward the sound, and the voices erupted, all of them at once. He ran. Not smart, not strategic, just raw survival. And by some miracle, he saw a faint orange glow ahead. Base camp. A generator light. He sprinted toward it with everything he had left. Behind him, the voices shrieked, overlapping, frantic, glitching through distorted cries. Stop! Come back! Jonas! Help! Hey! Over here! The sounds cut off the moment he crossed the rope perimeter of the camp. Just silence. And the storm eased as if nothing had ever been wrong. Aftermath. A presence without a name. When rescuers finally reached him, Jonas was incoherent, shaking violently, severely frostbitten, and repeating one phrase over and over. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a person. They found no other tracks in the snow. No sign of Ralph, who had never left camp. No evidence of another creature. But they did find something chilling. Jonas's ice axe, standing upright, blade buried deep in the snow. As if placed there, not thrown. Jonas never returned to glacier work. He warns others about whiteouts, not because you can get lost, but because something out there might be waiting for you to lost. Something that doesn't chase, doesn't hunt, it just calls, using any voice you'll follow. And in the endless white, where depth disappears and direction dies, you may not realize you're walking toward the thing that wants you the most. The story begins with a man named Elias Farrow, 42, experienced mountaineer, survival instructor, and the last person anyone would expect to simply disappear. It was early January. The air so cold the trees clicked like bones under tension. He'd driven up to a remote section of the High Crest Ridge Range, a place he'd camped dozens of times before. He told his wife he'd be home in 2 days. No storms were forecast. Visibility was perfect. Temperatures were cold, but manageable. When Elias parked his truck at the base trailhead, the entire world was a sheet of white and gold. The sunset had painted the snow with halos of light. His last known photo, taken by a motion sensor camera, showed him tightening his pack straps, glancing toward the ridge as if he sensed something waiting for him. But he kept walking. The strange part? What happens after? The clues that make no sense. When Elias failed to return home, search teams mobilized immediately. His footprints were easy to find. They led cleanly up the ridge trail, straight, deliberate, the steps of a confident hiker. But then, 2 miles in, the footprints changed. Not direction, not pattern, depth. They suddenly grew lighter, as if Elias had shifted his weight, as if he wasn't carrying his full pack anymore. But the pack wasn't found lying in the snow. Nothing had fallen out, nothing was dropped. And then, 50 yards later, his footprints simply stopped. not veered off, not covered by fresh snow, not blown away by wind. They ended in the middle of an untouched white expanse, like he had stepped into nothingness. One searcher described it best. Imagine footprints leading into a wall, except the wall is invisible, and the footprints just stop. Dogs were brought in. They circled the area, confused, whining, refusing to move farther up the ridge. Some sat down and stared at the tree line. Others backed away entirely, tails tucked, shaking. One dog threw up. Something had deeply disturbed them. But it wasn't just the dogs. The silence that felt wrong. Rescuers reported that the forest had a strange quietness. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that feels forced. No wind, no birds, no creaking of trees. One volunteer said it felt like stepping into a room where someone was holding their breath. Another described the silence as pressurized, like the air itself was thicker, heavier. Radio interference began shortly after. Static, bursts of distortion, voices breaking up. At one point, several team members heard something that sounded like whispering, layered beneath the static. They dismissed it as feedback, but one rescuer later admitted it sounded like someone calling for help, but not normal help, like it was mimicking human speech. Still, there was no trace of Elias. No gear, no clothing, no signs of struggle, no avalanche evidence, no cliffs to fall from, no cracks in the ice. He was simply gone. And the strangest part? This wasn't the first time. The vanishings that came before. After Elias's disappearance, investigators dug into past cases around the High Crest Ridge Range. The findings were disturbing. Over the last 40 years, 6 others had vanished in nearly identical ways. All experienced in winter terrain, all familiar with the mountain. All vanished from within a 3-mile radius, and all under perfect, clear, white conditions. One was a ski guide who told friends he felt like something was pacing me before he vanished. Another, a wildlife photographer, captured a final picture on her camera. The edge of a ridge, and in the corner, something dark, out of focus, standing upright. The photo was dismissed as a shadow. Another man had radioed in moments before disappearing. "I'm seeing someone out here. They're waving at me." He was alone on the mountain. Search teams found only one thing in common with all disappearances. The air around the last known locations always felt wrong, heavy, compressed, as if something unseen was standing there pushing the world inward. Theory or truth? Locals have their own explanations. Some say the ridge is cursed. Others believe the snow hides thin caverns that swallow people whole. Some think it's a predator, not animal, not human, that mimics voices the way a hunter uses bait. But there is one story, whispered by old rangers, that chills even the most hardened listeners. They call it the White One, a shape that blends perfectly with winter storms, a presence that moves silently through the trees, a thing that watches travelers long before they ever sense it, a thing that chooses. They say it never attacks up close. It waits, follows, mirrors your footsteps, and when you're alone, when you feel that shift in the air, when the silence thickens around you, it steps forward, and you disappear without a sound. The final search. 3 weeks after Elias vanished, a final sweep was ordered. Most of the area had already been combed multiple times. Nothing new was expected. But on the last day, just as the sun began to set, a searcher radioed in. "I found something. You need to see this." Half buried in a drift was Elias's glove, perfectly preserved by the cold. It wasn't torn, not weathered, not dragged. It looked placed. Right beside it were footprints. Not Elias's, not human. They were deep, 3-pronged, and perfectly spaced, as if something had been standing right there, watching the searchers. But the strangest detail? The prints weren't leading toward Elias's last known location. They were leading away from it, back into the forest, into the white. As if something had walked off, dragging silence behind it. The enduring question. Elias Harrow was never found. Not a bone, not a scrap of clothing, not a trace in the snow. Some say the winter claimed him. Some say the mountain took him. But others whisper a far more chilling thought. Maybe the wilderness isn't empty. Maybe something lives in the white. Maybe something that knows how to hide, how to wait, how to lead people astray, and erase them as easily as footprints in fresh snow. And if that's true, then the winter wilderness isn't just dangerous, it's hungry.